game, a baby gets punched. Down here on the bottom it says, there is a free pamphlet on the subject. Call or write for a copy, a copy, a copy. A copy for everyone you know. Please ask for Priscilla. Just so I can explain, because I have to say I'm free associating on this, but I'm very sure that the reason they ask for Priscilla is to verify which people are reading which magazines and that the woman in question doesn't actually exist. But I still love her. But here's also what kind of interests me when I look back at it in this time is ADAPSO. What the fuck is ADAPSO, right? Turns out ADAPSO is the Association of Data Processing Service Organizations. It's been around since 1962. Okay? So this was an organization that was associated with an industry collective dealing with issues that were pervading an entire industry. This is how things get done. If you look at other similar organizations, the Business Software Alliance, the Software Publishers Alliance, first of all, the SPA has been renamed to the Information Industry. Actually, let me get this right. BSA still exists, fuckers. SPA was created in 1984, and then IIA, which is the Information Industry Association, which is a little bit before it, they combined, and now this organization still exists, the SIIA, the Software and Information Industry Association. Oh, that's awesome. So these guys are where companies have things done that they don't want to be associated with. You see? They are the ones who whine. They're the ones who threaten to sue. And yes, of course, they're being funded entirely, but there's that little layer of protection, and if something goes wrong, they deal with it, and there's a lot of pressure. While doing research for this, I found this rather interesting ADAPSO reunion workshop held by the absolutely wonderful Computer History Museum, which is out in California and has been making an effort to get oral histories with a lot of people and collect them. So I just happened to take part of their transcription, and it just mentions here that the ADAPSO board had a heated discussion because of the software companies. Microsoft and a handful of other software vendors said, "We want to bring a series of lawsuits against major corporations in America for illegally copying our software, and we're looking for a trade association to work with us on it. We insist on your funding support and the use of your name." And there was a very heated discussion. So basically they came to them and said, please be our front, because we're about to punch a lot of companies in the face, and we don't want to be known for doing that. That's kind of interesting, but actually what's much more interesting is way down here is this discussion where the lead counsel for SPA found that they weren't moving fast enough, and they moved to the BSA to become, oh, sorry about that, they left the DAPSO to go with SPA, okay? And they took with them many of the legal arguments and writings that the DASPO had put together to fight software piracy, and then used them. So they go, did you steal the idea? No, no, no. It was entirely reverse engineered. So basically, an anti-piracy group pirated an anti-piracy group out of their anti-piracy language to fight piracy. It helps a lot to talk to people years after things happen, because then they go, oh yeah, we were assholes, sorry about that. It's very informative, especially if, like some people I've talked to, they've had their lives ruined by lawsuits dealing with piracy. All right. So one of the side effects of that is you get some really awesome propaganda, right? Nail your boss or colleagues, suppliers, dealers, and others who illegally copy software, $5,000 reward. Similarly over here, be a big fat hero in glasses. Report, you don't have to leap tall buildings a single bound. Fighting crime, righting wrongs, doing the right thing. You too can be a superhero when you take a stand against software piracy. These are all feelers, right? They've defined stealing piracy as something awful, and you can be a part of it, okay? This is an environment of fear and intimidation that's brought on by propaganda. This one's very recent. This is in the Philippines. A nice reboot of the whole process, right? These guys are looking like badasses until you look down on the bottom left and you see he's the chairman of the Optical Media Board. And the guy on the right, Director, National Bureau of Investigation. And up there, 139 businesses were raided, 85 businesses were inspected, 1,686 computers were seized. So basically they're saying, look out, your entire business could be ruined if you have one illegal copyrighted software. Now, this does get to some pretty ludicrous levels. In 2000, the BSA put vans in various locations in England and said they were scanning buildings for illegal software and advised you to report immediately that you were stealing software so their van detectors would not find you. However, I am funded by these wonderful people for my sabbatical, so I spent a little more time on this than just going, ha-ha, the Register made fun of the BSA. And I found that in 1998, Microsoft funded with $20 million an educational research project in which Ross Anderson, who has said in the thing, I hope they never use it, funded a way to send alternate signals from what's on the screen via radio transmission, so that on the left it looks like this, and on the right it's sending a completely different signal. The idea being that each piece of software would have this implemented and be able to, again, in software it's doing this, send out its serial number constantly, enabling you from within 200 to 300 feet to know the serial numbers of all the machines around you. So someone did try this shit. It actually did sort of exist. However, they never went forward with it. But what the fuck? Let's deploy a van fleet anyway. So there you go, right? So never question everything without checking in first. But I just put this in here because everyone knows about it, right? Here's a case of just this awful music video that's going to make you pirate things. But they made it for free, so you copy it. So all right, so obviously when you live in an environment of such fear, intimidation, and rotten music videos, eventually people just start using your own methodology against you. They start using bizarre language, harshness, making fun of things, all this kind of gallows humor to get around the fact that there's this awful amount of threats and everything around you, right? So, in fact, there's all of this stuff that's been written and created in various degrees, right? And it's not, not everything I say has to fall with the general theme of the audience. I don't see any moral or logical advantage over the other companies when this is done. I think this is just as much propaganda as the other, because it diminishes actual work being done by creators that they're trying to do good things, and it makes it sound like every single movie sucks, every single creator is awful. So you have to keep an eye out. It's funny. The don't copy this floppy is funny. This is funny, this entire crazy thing here. But on the other hand, people are creating stuff and they want to protect it and they want to do stuff. It's all a matter of how do we go about it. That's as far as I'm going to go into that debate because it tires me. And if it tires me, I can imagine what it does to you. So, hooray. All right. So throughout the work that I do, I collect a whole bunch of things. And one of the things I've always had a kind of a soft spot for were Apple II software pirates. There's something about them, I really kind of enjoyed that. I didn't own an Apple II when I was a kid, but somehow I was fascinated at just the creativity and the work. So a few years ago, I went ahead through a few thousand pirated Apple II products that I have since deleted, and I built this collection of crack screens. And I'm just going to quickly explain what crack screens are, just for a moment, just for whoever. Okay, who doesn't know what crack screens are? All right, exactly. So, crack screens are, when software first comes out, it was fucking huge. It could take you an hour or more to download your 143K floppy across modem lines. It was a unneeded effort to do this. So often, floppies that were created by commercial software creators would actually not have a lot of data. You might have a 143K floppy, but actually it would only have 20K of useful data on it. And so what happened is that people could just duplicate the whole disk through an entire industry, which I'll go into for a little bit, but you would end up with this large, hard-to-transfer thing. Well, here, you could also have someone who had some skills go through it, take the software off the disk or through memory, and then create a much smaller bundle that could be transferred much quicker, i.e. crack it. This was also the case if they built in protections. I spent many years talking to software pirates from the Apple II era. All sorts of fellows, very smart. For instance, they would design new boot ROMs inside Apple IIs that looked like a normal boot ROM because it was being checked by the software, and then as soon as it detected that the searchlight had gone away from it, it would turn into a pirated thing and grab down the software. So there was a whole bunch of work done on this, and there were hacker and cracker magazines dedicated to software cracking. For instance, the beautiful Hardcore Computist, later renamed to simply Computist, which I have an entire archive of with their permission. And it has both products and instructions on cracking software. So here we go. When you cracked it, why just stop at cracking it? Why not brag about how fucking awesome you are? I figured this was an urge that might have some sort of symbiosis with the people in this room. So, people would create these crack screens. What you're seeing here are all screens that were created by crackers or cracking groups to say, what you're about to play is something I stole. You're welcome. Now, initially, you would have pretty basic ways of doing this. For instance, this is a crack screen where basically when you loaded up the software, you would blow it into screen memory for a moment, so it would cause the screen to flip out. And these guys would put their own name buried in the text so it would show up at the top of the screen. And you'll notice the use of the modified copyright, so it's K for cracked. So cracked, high technology, and creative cracker, the Apple Mafia strikes. Don't try to decode the rest. Don't waste the time. Stop! Guys are nuts. I put this in just because I wanted you to get some perspective on these software pirates that were just absolutely able to go everywhere. If you look on the bottom, it says, dedicated to the war don who's gone at summer camp for 8 weeks. Gonna pour some Kool-Aid on the ground for my friend. Poor guy. But otherwise, here are bulletin boards to call. Notice they've got the password so nobody would break into their software piracy collections. Active, NASCOMP, Aussie. So, but you can see it was cracked on June 22nd, 1984 by the Zapman and distributed by the DOC and the ACE. And that means that they would physically call a ton of computer bulletin boards around the country and leave copies of this with their pride and regards. So, and the problem, of course, is that sometimes you run out of interesting things to crack, and you're always trying to kind of get a name for yourself. So here we see someone has blown out this awesomeware, the Department of Transportation National Highway Traffic Safety Administration Self-Evaluation for Teens. Bring that one on, huh? He will be shown 40 statements representing attitudes concerning drinking and driving. I'm for it! Type the response number, will be displayed in the graph. So this was the thing. Could you imagine showing up the gates of some ASCII Express or bulletin board line and going, I got a hot new ware for you? Let me go into this for a moment, by the way. What would happen is that a piece of software would be released on a certain day. We'd know that it was coming out on June 5th. But if you were a cracker group and you somehow got your hands on it a few days before, you would say, I got this thing before anybody else. But that usually didn't happen. Nobody had an in at that time. So what they would do instead is say, this has been out for 4 days. This is a 4-day wear. And then it would be, I have a 3-day wear. And then if you were able to release your pirated software in the early 80s before anybody else, and before it was in the stores, it was called a 0-day wear. Somehow this has turned into an entire fucking industry. And it drives me nuts to see 0 day being used this way, but what are you going to do? Now it's like on like fuck